Welcome, the anointed ones. There comes a moment in every chosen one's life where the universe stops whispering and starts announcing. That's the moment you're in right now. The moment where everything around you shifts, not subtly, not quietly, but decisively. You can feel it in your bones before you see it with your eyes. Something has already broken in your favor, long before the results show up on paper. And the wildest part? Even the people who doubted you can sense it. They don't know what you did, but they know it worked. Here's a fact most people overlook. Psychologists have found that when a person experiences a major breakthrough, their energy changes before their circumstances do. That means the elevation hits your spirit first, your environment second, and your critics last, which explains why certain people suddenly look confused, bothered, or suspiciously polite around you. Your win showed up spiritually before it arrived physically, and their reactions exposed the shift before you even celebrated it. This is the season where your quiet decisions start making loud announcements. The season where you realize you weren't fighting for victory. You were fighting to recognize that you already had it. Every silent move you made, every boundary you enforced, every night you kept your sanity intact instead of replying to unnecessary nonsense, it all aligned into one powerful truth. Whatever you did, it worked. The outcome is no longer pending. It's delivered. And let's keep it real for a second. Some people are about to be shocked in a way that deserves background music. Because while they were busy watching you, analyzing you, underestimating you, even Googling how to block a miracle, you were out here activating destiny in ways they never imagined. They kept trying to predict your failure. Meanwhile, the universe was preparing your confirmation email. So sit back, breathe, and let this truth settle into your spirit. You didn't stumble into this win. You authored it. And now you're stepping into a chapter where your results speak fluently, confidently, and with receipts. Let's get into it. Number 1, you didn't just break cycles. You broke the system that created them. Breaking a cycle isn't just about refusing to repeat mistakes or ending patterns that were toxic. That's only the surface. What you did goes much deeper. You didn't just stop the hurt from reaching the next generation or avoid the traps that kept everyone else stuck. You dismantled the very framework that allowed those patterns to exist in the first place. Every expectation, every judgment, every manipulation that tried to shape your life, you outgrew it. That's why your victory feels so different. It isn't just personal, it's systemic. People around you may never understand it. They see your calm, your progress, your success, and they think it's luck, timing, or favor. They don't realize that the reason it works is because you refuse to play the game on their terms. You rewrote the rules of engagement without even needing to announce it. Every toxic strategy, every expectation that people tried to impose on you failed because you operated on a higher frequency than the environment could handle. You didn't just react, you recalibrated. This is the kind of win that echoes. It's subtle, but its impact is undeniable. Those who tried to manipulate you, control you, or trap you in old patterns now find themselves out of alignment with the world you're moving in. Their systems were built to handle ordinary, predictable responses. You, however, were never ordinary, and you made that very clear by refusing to fit into molds, scripts, and limitations. And the most striking part is that this victory wasn't loud. It didn't need fireworks, announcements, or applause. It was executed quietly, with precision, through self-mastery, focus, and unshakable belief in your worth. The cycles that once threatened to define you, to dictate your future, now crumble silently behind you. What you accomplished is extraordinary because it's permanent. It's not just about surviving anymore. It's about taking ownership of the system itself and proving that no chain, no expectation, no inherited weakness can contain someone who is committed to their truth. You didn't just survive, you rewrote the code that designed your survival. That's the kind of victory most people will never see coming, and it's the kind of win that only someone like you could claim. Number 2, your absence exposed the structure of every lie built around you. Your absence was not a gap, it was a revelation. The moment you stepped back, paused, or stopped participating in the narratives that trapped you, everything around you began to unravel. People who thrived on your presence, who relied on your energy to make their lies believable, suddenly found their world shaky. The stories they told about you, the opinions they crafted to manipulate others, the judgments they leaned on to feel powerful, all of it fell apart the instant you removed yourself. You didn't have to fight, argue, or expose anyone. Simply not being there was enough. It's shocking how much the people around us build their reality on someone else's life. They create illusions and depend on predictable behavior to maintain control. You disrupted all of that. By stepping away, you became the quiet instrument of truth, showing them that the foundation of their assumptions was weak. They tried to hold their narratives together, to convince themselves and everyone else that your absence was irrelevant, but the cracks were undeniable. Their confidence, which once looked untouchable, started to wobble. Their casual smirks, their subtle manipulations, and even their subtle power plays lost the gravity they once held. This is the kind of influence that's invisible to many, but seismic to those who need to see it. You weren't vindictive, you weren't dramatic. You simply stopped being a participant in a system designed to control or misrepresent you. And that's enough to create chaos for those who built their authority on your response. Their world was structured around you being predictable, around you showing up for the roles they wrote for you, and once you stepped away, the performance ended. Your absence revealed the truth in a way confrontation never could. Lies, pretenses, and manipulations can survive only as long as you allow yourself to be a part of them. By refusing to engage, by holding your space, by keeping your power intact, you forced the invisible walls of deception to collapse. You didn't just change your world, you changed how they see it, how they see themselves, and how fragile their control truly was. And that is a win that can never be taken back. Number 3, the breakthrough. Happened the moment you stopped asking for what was already yours. The real turning point didn't come from struggling harder, pleading louder, or proving yourself to anyone. It came the moment you stopped reaching out for validation, clarity, or permission for what was always rightfully yours. For years you may have felt like you had to convince the world to give you your place, your respect, your success, or even your peace. That effort created friction, frustration, and doubt. But the second you stopped chasing approval and started trusting your own timing, your own alignment, everything shifted. The breakthrough wasn't external, it was internal, and it changed everything. When you stop asking, you stop negotiating with people, situations, and circumstances that never had the authority to decide your worth. You stop giving energy to uncertainty, fear, and manipulation. You stop trying to fix what wasn't broken because you realize it was never broken. It was simply waiting for you to claim it confidently. That is why, when you finally stand in your truth without begging for acknowledgement, the universe responds immediately. Doors open, opportunities align, and even the things that seemed impossible suddenly fall into place. The key isn't effort. The key is recognition of your own authority over your life. Most people never experience this because they are trapped in the cycle of seeking permission. They wait for someone to validate their brilliance, their right to happiness, their chance to rise. You, however, broke free from that trap. You realized the moment you stopped asking, the breakthrough was already inevitable. You didn't earn it by proving yourself to others. You earned it by proving yourself to yourself. That quiet, confident claim of what belongs to you is magnetic, unstoppable, and irreversible. This is the kind of victory that feels effortless yet powerful. Everything you once begged for now flows naturally, because the energy you were wasting on convincing others has been redirected to owning your power. You didn't fight harder, you simply refused to give your power away. And in that refusal, the universe confirmed exactly what you already knew. It was yours all along, and now it has no choice but to arrive. Number 4. Your growth became their consequence. Your progress didn't just elevate you. It exposed everything and everyone that tried to hold you back. It highlighted the truth in a way no confrontation ever could. Every move you made toward healing, leveling up and strengthening yourself became a quiet spotlight shining on every tactic used against you. People who pushed you down, underestimated you, or tried to shape your future with their negativity are now forced to face a reality they never expected. You outgrew the space they tried to confine you to. Your growth isn't just personal victory. It's accountability without you saying a single word. As you rose, you revealed the smallness of their intentions. When you became stable, their chaos showed. When you became wiser, their manipulation lost its grip. When you became confident, their control evaporated. The growth you earned through discipline and self-respect became a clear contrast to their stagnation. They can't explain your rise without exposing their own behavior, so they resort to silence, distance, or excuses. But deep down, they know your evolution tells the real story. You didn't have to call anyone out or demand justice. Your transformation delivered that naturally. The glow they tried to dim became brighter, and that brightness revealed every shadow they hid behind. What they once thought was superiority was actually dependency. They needed you stuck so they could feel stable. When you moved forward anyway, the imbalance became unmistakable. Your success became the mirror they never wanted to face. This is the kind of consequence no one sees coming. It doesn't require revenge or bitterness. All it requires is your continued rise, because when someone tries to bury you and you grow taller instead, it exposes their intention and your resilience in the same moment. Your evolution is living proof that everything done against you failed, and not only failed, but transformed into fuel. Their consequences are unfolding in real time, not through punishment, but through contrast. And the more you grow, the more undeniable that contrast becomes. Your elevation is the verdict, your maturity is the proof, and your progress is the judgment they never saw coming. Number 5. You mastered a level of discipline that terrifies people who live on impulse. Your win didn't appear from thin air. It came from the kind of discipline most people will never touch, because it demands something they aren't willing to give. Consistency, self-awareness, restraint, and long-term thinking. While others acted on impulse, reacted out of emotion, or chased instant gratification, you practiced a level of control that separated you from the crowd. You made decisions that didn't feel good immediately, but built a foundation that kept you steady while others fell apart. People who live impulsively don't respect discipline because they don't understand it, but they fear what it produces. Your calm confused people. They didn't know what to do when you refused to react, refused to chase drama, refused to crumble, refused to give energy to nonsense. They expected you to break, lash out, slip up, or collapse into old patterns, and the fact that you didn't shook them. They were used to environments where chaos controls everyone. But you moved differently. You showed up with clarity while they showed up with confusion. You chose structure while they chose shortcuts. You invested in yourself while they invested in distractions. That kind of discipline makes people who rely on manipulation uncomfortable. They can't bait you, They can't predict you. They can't destabilize you with the same tactics they use on everyone else. They don't know how to handle someone who operates from principles, not impulses. They can't infiltrate a mind that's locked into purpose, nor can they distract someone who already knows what they're building. Your discipline built an internal world that's stronger than the chaos around you. You created mental order, emotional boundaries, and spiritual focus. That internal structure protected you from traps that took others down easily. It's why you won, not because you were favored randomly, but because you were committed intentionally. People often call discipline boring, strict, or extreme until they're forced to face the results it produces. And that's what terrifies them now. Your life is reflecting what their impulses could never achieve. Your stability is showing what their shortcuts cost them. Your victory didn't happen overnight. It happened because you became someone unstoppable on the inside long before the outside changed. Number 6. You stopped explaining yourself, and that was your final upgrade. There was a time when you felt the need to clarify everything. Your decisions, your silence, your boundaries, your growth. You explained yourself to keep the peace, to avoid being misunderstood, to prove you weren't who they claimed you were. But every explanation you offered became a cushion for someone else's comfort. It allowed people to stay in their delusions without challenging their assumptions, their behavior, or their motives. You carried the emotional labor while they carried the entitlement of being right. The moment you stopped explaining yourself, everything shifted. You removed the safety net. You stopped giving people the how and why behind your choices, and they suddenly had to sit with the truth on their own. And truth has a funny way of exposing people when there's no distraction, no debate, and no excuses to hide behind. Some quietly panicked. Some pretended not to care. Some tried to bait you into reacting so they could feel in control again. But you didn't fall for it. Your silence wasn't arrogance. It was clarity. It came from finally understanding that people who are genuinely aligned with you don't need explanations, and people determined to misunderstand you won't accept them anyway. The moment you realized that, you took your power back. You stopped negotiating your worth through conversations that drained you. You stopped justifying your boundaries to people who never respected them. You stopped giving people access to the parts of you that were never theirs to judge. And here's the part they didn't expect. When they no longer had access to your explanations, they no longer had access to influence you. Your detachment forced them to confront the inconsistencies in their own behavior. It made them realize that the only thing holding their narratives together was your participation. Without your voice, their assumptions had no ground to stand on. You didn't win by proving them wrong. You won by no longer needing their approval to be right with yourself. That was your final upgrade. Stepping into a version of you that no longer wastes energy defending what is already true. Your silence became the boundary they can't cross, and the truth they can't escape. Number 7. You became too purpose-driven to be manipulated emotionally. There comes a point where your life stops being controlled by emotions and starts being guided by direction. That's exactly what happened to you. The moment your purpose became bigger than your wounds, the emotional games people used to play lost their effect completely. You were no longer moved by guilt trips, sob stories, silent treatments, or sudden bursts of chaos. You saw right through it because your vision was finally stronger than your triggers. What used to pull you in now barely registers, and that change wasn't random. It was earned. Emotional manipulation only works on someone who hasn't fully realized their value. When you doubted yourself, others had power. They could twist your empathy into obligation. They could twist your kindness into responsibility. They could twist your silence into guilt. But once you started walking with intention, not insecurity, all those tactics became useless. You lost interest in defending yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stopped responding to drama that wasn't yours. You stopped entertaining situations that pulled you out of alignment. This shift confused people who relied on your emotional reactions to feel important or in control. When you stopped reacting, they lost their leverage. They expected you to chase after explanations, to soften your boundaries, to fix the feelings they created. Instead, you stayed focused. That focus made their strategies fall flat. It revealed that the power they thought they had over you was always temporary, and only existed as long as you were unsure of your path. You weren't cold, you were clear. And clarity is something manipulators can't work with. They need you emotional, uncertain, doubting, or desperate. But you stepped into a version of yourself that knows where it's going and refuses to be dragged anywhere else. Your purpose demanded a different level of you, and you answered that call fully. The moment you became driven by vision instead of validation, the entire dynamic changed. You stopped playing their game, which meant the game ended instantly. They couldn't move you, shake you, or steer you anymore, because a person anchored in purpose can't be controlled. They can only be respected, avoided, or silently admired, and that's exactly where you stand now. Number 8, you finally realized you were never fighting people. You were fighting the version of yourself that didn't know its own power. The biggest breakthrough of your journey wasn't winning against anyone else. It was outgrowing the version of you that couldn't see who you really were. For a long time, it looked like people were your problem. Their disrespect, their manipulation, their jealousy, their attempts to limit you, their constant need to test your patience. It all felt personal. It felt like you were in a battle with outside forces determined to break you. But the truth revealed itself the moment you stepped into your strength. The real battle was always within. You weren't fighting them. You were fighting the version of yourself that believed you had to tolerate them. Everything shifted the day you stopped identifying with that older version of you, the version that kept the peace at your own expense, the version that explained your intentions so people wouldn't twist them, the version that blamed itself for how others treated you, the version that stayed loyal to situations long after they proved they didn't deserve you. Once that version was gone, the conflict evaporated like smoke. Not because people changed, but because you changed the access they once had. The world didn't get kinder. You simply stopped walking into rooms with your head lowered. You learned your value, and with that awareness came a natural upgrade in the way you responded to negativity. You no longer entertained conversations that drained you. You no longer tried to fix what wasn't your responsibility. You no longer absorbed disrespect as if it were a normal part of life. You stepped into a level of inner stability that made it impossible for people to treat you the way they once did. The beauty of this transformation is that the enemy you thought you were fighting became irrelevant. You weren't trying to defeat them. You outgrew them. You outgrew their tactics, their expectations, and the limits they placed on you. You retired the version of yourself that they depended on to feel powerful, and when that version disappeared, so did their control. Your victory came not from overpowering anyone, but from becoming a person who no longer needed to fight the battles that once consumed you. You stepped into power, and everything that wasn't aligned with it naturally fell away. Number 9, you won because you were willing to lose people to gain yourself. True victory often comes with a price, and for you, that price was letting go. Most people never reach this level because they cling to what's familiar, even if it's toxic, just to avoid being alone or uncomfortable. They hold on to relationships, environments, and connections that drain them because they fear the emptiness that comes with change. You, however, made a different choice. You were willing to walk away from anything and anyone that stood between you and your growth, even if it meant standing in silence while the world questioned your decisions. You understood that keeping people in your life out of obligation, habit, or fear was a slow death for your soul. You realized that your energy is precious and that the wrong presence could hijack your progress, cloud your focus, and compromise your peace. So you prioritized yourself, your clarity, your purpose, your mission, over the comfort of anyone else's expectations. You chose healing over validation, alignment over approval, and truth over companionship that demanded compromise. That was the moment your life began to tilt in your favor. The lessons here are brutal but necessary. People who tried to hold you back were never meant to rise with you. They were anchors disguised as comfort, and you had to release them. Letting go didn't make you cold, it made you clear. Every boundary you drew, every relationship you walked away from, every opinion you ignored was a step toward reclaiming the space you deserve. That willingness to risk loneliness in order to honor yourself signaled to the universe that you were serious. Serious about your growth, serious about your purpose, and serious about the life you were meant to live. Your willingness to lose others became the key that unlocked your freedom. While they scrambled, complained, or tried to guilt you back, you moved forward unshaken. And because you had the courage to prioritize yourself, the blessings didn't take long to arrive. They followed naturally, drawn to the energy of someone who values themselves enough to refuse compromise. Your victory wasn't dependent on anyone else. It was always inside you. You simply had to claim it by choosing yourself first. Number 10. Your spiritual authority increased. Every time you chose restraint over reaction. There's a level of spiritual maturity that can't be faked, forced, or performed. It can only be earned in silence, in restraint, and in the moments where your soul wants to roar but your spirit whispers, "Wait, this is the territory you stepped into." See, spiritual authority isn't measured by how loudly you clap back or how quickly you retaliate. It's measured by how firmly you stay aligned with your purpose when someone tries to pull you out of character. And every time you made the harder choice, the quiet choice, the disciplined choice, you were being promoted in realms you couldn't see yet. Every moment you held your tongue when someone tried to provoke you. Every time you walked away instead of proving your point. Every time you chose inner peace over temporary vindication. You weren't being passive. You were being fortified. What you didn't realize back then is that restraint is not weakness. Restraint is spiritual intelligence. It's the refusal to let someone else's chaos dictate the rhythm of your journey. It's the understanding that not every battle is yours, and not every insult requires your energy. It's knowing that timing is a weapon, and heaven controls the clock. Now that quiet mastery is paying off. The authority you built in silence is being translated into opportunities that were always meant for the strongest version of you. Doors are opening that emotional impulsiveness would have slammed shut. Protection is surrounding you that past reactions would have forfeited. Elevation is unfolding exactly because you refuse to descend. Heaven does not reward noise. It rewards self-governance. Heaven does not bless ego. It blesses alignment. Heaven does not promote fighters. It promotes masters. And every time you chose restraint, you were being documented, upgraded, and prepared. You didn't lose by staying silent. You didn't look weak by walking away. You didn't fall behind by refusing to react. You ascended. Your silence wasn't empty. It was strategic. Your restraint wasn't fear. It was authority. Your patience wasn't delay. It was preparation for the level you're stepping into now. This is why you're winning. This is why you're protected. This is why you're elevated, because heaven keeps perfect records of self-mastery, and your file is overflowing. Number 11. You outgrew the environment that was only designed to teach you, not keep you. Some environments are not destinations. They are classrooms disguised as familiarity. They are temporary stages engineered to sculpt you, sharpen you, stretch you, and force you into a version of yourself that comfort would have never produced. And once those lessons were complete, the environment could no longer hold you, not because you became rebellious, but because you became too evolved for the density that once shaped you. You were never meant to stay where you were molded. The potter never keeps the clay in the shaping room. It was always meant to be removed, refined, and revealed somewhere else. But you stayed longer than you should have, not because you were stuck, but because you were loyal to a place that was only loyal to your potential, not your destiny. That's why everything started collapsing the moment you grew. Relationships began breaking. Jobs started feeling suffocating. Friend circles became misaligned. Your intuition grew louder than your surroundings. What once felt normal now felt too small. You weren't losing your environment. Your environment was losing you. See, when the purpose of a place is complete, it can no longer nourish you. It begins to restrict you, irritate you, and expose how limited it always was. That discomfort wasn't punishment. It was a divine push, a spiritual eviction notice, a signal that you were being promoted to a higher chapter that couldn't fit inside the walls you were outgrowing. Your success feels predestined because it is. You were never planted in that environment to stay. You were planted there to be transformed, to develop character, resilience, discernment, vision, selfhood, and spiritual authority. The environment was the furnace, not the throne room. It was the rehearsal, not the main stage. It was the training ground, not the kingdom. And once a training ground has fulfilled its purpose, it begins to reject the one it once shaped, not out of hostility, but out of completion. You didn't outgrow people because you became arrogant. You outgrew them because your destiny required a level of consciousness they were never meant to reach. You didn't walk away because you stopped caring. You walked away because staying would have cost you the future you're now stepping into. You weren't abandoned. You were released. You weren't rejected. You were redirected. You weren't losing stability. You were gaining elevation. Now everything makes sense. Why you felt different. Why you couldn't stay. Why everything around you eventually crumbled. It wasn't sabotage, it was spiritual completion. Your environment fulfilled its purpose, and now it's your turn to fulfill yours. Number 12. Your name is becoming a key in rooms you've never entered. There comes a moment in every chosen person's journey when their character begins to travel faster than their physical presence. Your name, once dismissed or misrepresented, is now carrying a weight that can't be manipulated, rewritten, or buried. That shift didn't happen because you defended yourself or fought to be understood. It happened because your growth built a reputation that spoke louder than any narrative created against you. Your reputation has developed a spiritual gravity. People are drawn to your story, your resilience, your transformation, and the unmistakable integrity attached to your evolution. Even people who once underestimated you are being confronted by a truth they can't escape. Your name now opens doors that their lies could never close. They're watching opportunities form around you, not because you're campaigning, impressing, or convincing anyone, but because who you became has more authority than anything you've ever said. Influence stopped being something you chased the moment you became aligned with your purpose. When you stopped performing for approval, when you stopped shrinking to keep the peace, when you stopped explaining your every move, your energy shifted from needing validation to radiating certainty. That certainty, woven with your humility, created a powerful combination, one that makes people speak well of you, even in your absence. You became someone they reference, someone they recommend, someone whose name carries a sense of trust, depth, and spiritual clarity. What's happening now is beyond networking or connections. This is divine recognition. Heaven stamped your name long before humans did. That's why the attempts to smear you never stuck. That's why the rumors evaporated. That's why your essence remained untouched, no matter how many tried to distort it. Your spirit was too loud, too distinct, too real to be misinterpreted forever. Your name is not just known, it's respected. It's not just spoken, it's considered. It's not just circulating, it's opening doors you haven't even walked toward yet. This is what happens when someone becomes aligned with their destiny. The world begins preparing for their arrival before they get there. Your name is no longer a label, it's a key, and the rooms it's unlocking were always meant for you. Number 13. You became the evidence that silent battles produce loud victories. Your rise makes people uncomfortable because they don't understand where your strength came from. That's the consequence of underestimating someone whose hardest moments were never put on display. While others broadcast their pain for sympathy, you faced your storms behind closed doors, holding yourself together with nothing but grit, humility, and a quiet faith that refused to collapse. Those silent battles became the foundation of the life you're living now. A life that speaks louder than any explanation you could ever give. People aren't just shocked by your victory, they're confused by it. They expected you to be broken, bitter, or permanently damaged after everything you went through. They expected a public meltdown, a visible crack, a sign that their pressure succeeded. But you didn't crumble in their timelines or fail for their entertainment. You disappeared, confronted the parts of yourself that needed healing, rebuilt what life tried to dismantle, and emerged with a peace that doesn't shake, and a strength that doesn't announce itself. You weren't rewarded because you suffered. Suffering alone doesn't guarantee anything. You were rewarded because you survived without letting your suffering corrupt your character. You didn't retaliate every time you were provoked. You didn't expose people even when they deserved it. You didn't broadcast your wounds for validation. You held your dignity when it was easier to lose it, and heaven responds to that kind of integrity. Your victory is loud now, not because you're bragging, but because the transformation is undeniable. The glow is louder than the trauma. The elevation is louder than the betrayal. The blessings are louder than the setbacks. You became walking evidence that resilience doesn't need witnesses, and healing doesn't require an audience. What you built privately is now shining publicly, and no one can take credit for it. Your story proves something rare. When a chosen one fights in silence, the victory becomes impossible to ignore. Number 14. You won because the universe could finally trust you with what you prayed for. There comes a point in a chosen one's life where it becomes clear that blessings aren't withheld out of cruelty. They're withheld out of precision. What you're receiving now isn't delayed luck or random fortune. It's the result of you becoming the version of yourself who can actually hold, protect, and multiply what you used to beg for. The universe knew when you were ready long before you did. And now that your character has aligned with your calling, nothing is standing in the way of the life meant for you. You weren't being punished when things felt slow. You weren't being ignored when your prayers seemed unanswered. You were being prepared. You were being shaped into someone who wouldn't sabotage miracles out of insecurity, desperation, or old habits. That preparation felt like isolation. It felt like loss. It felt like waiting in a room with no doors. But every season that felt still was really a season of internal construction. You were being grounded, disciplined, purified, and recentered so that when the gates finally opened, you wouldn't fumble what you spent years asking for. The universe doesn't operate on emotion. It operates on readiness. And now you're ready in a way you weren't before. You've learned the difference between desire and maturity. You've learned how to stay committed without being impulsive. You've learned how to walk away from distractions, regulate your reactions, honor your intuition, and choose peace over chaos. These are traits that blessings require. They're not optional, they're foundational. That's why everything is flowing now. It's not a coincidence, it's clearance. Your growth triggered the timing. The spiritual locks that once kept certain things out weren't meant to deny you. They were meant to protect what was fragile inside you. Now that you've grown into a stable vessel, the universe isn't hesitant anymore. It can trust you to steward opportunities without fear, relationships without insecurity, success without ego, and abundance without self-destruction. This is alignment, not luck. This is confirmation, not coincidence. You didn't just win, you became someone the universe could finally say yes to. Chosen one, take a moment and let this sink in. Everything you've endured, every quiet battle you've fought, every boundary you've enforced, every risk you've taken, and every step you've refused to compromise on has led to this undeniable victory. You didn't just survive, you evolved. You didn't just grow, you transformed the very systems, spaces, and people around you. Your rise was never accidental, your timing never random, and your blessings never arbitrary. Every challenge, every betrayal, every moment of doubt was a necessary part of the process, sculpting a version of you that the universe could finally trust with the life, influence, and elevation you were destined to claim. What you've achieved is rare. Not everyone can walk through fire and emerge intact, untouched by bitterness, unshaken by chaos, and unmanipulated by those who tried to steal their peace. You've mastered restraint when others demanded reaction, chosen purpose over emotional manipulation, and built authority silently while the world waited for your downfall. Your name now carries weight in rooms you haven't even entered. Your growth has become an undeniable judgment on the forces that tried to keep you small. The blessings you enjoy today are not random gifts. They are confirmations that the universe recognized your readiness, your self-mastery, and your alignment with your calling. You are the living proof that patience, discipline, and integrity always win. You've turned silent struggles into loud victories. You've traded the familiar toxicity of people and environments that were never meant to keep you for the freedom, clarity, and power that only comes when you prioritize your soul over approval, your mission over opinion, and your purpose over comfort. Your story is a declaration, a blueprint, and an inspiration for anyone who dares to rise without compromise. Now, as you continue stepping into this next level of your life, know that your victories will keep compounding. The universe is orchestrating opportunities, protection, and alignment in ways that will leave everyone around you astounded. You are no longer just a survivor. You are a force, a beacon, and a chosen one walking in your divine authority. If this resonates with you and you feel the power of this message, make sure to subscribe to the channel to never miss content that uplifts and empowers your journey. Like this video if it spoke directly to your soul, comment below and share your story of growth and triumph with others who need to hear it. Your journey is extraordinary and it deserves to be celebrated and witnessed. Keep rising, keep claiming, and keep shining. The world is watching and your time is now. God bless you.